Welcome to Breaking Up, a podcast about breakups, love and pop culture. I'm your host, Isabella Shields, and in this episode I'm joined by Tineka Smith to discuss interracial relationships. Tineka is a racial equality advocate and founder of Huetribe, a diverse greetings card company. Her new Audible original book, Mixed Up, Confessions of an Interracial Couple, is out now and will be released in paperback form in April 2021. Hello, Tineka.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
No, not at all. I'm really happy you've been up for a chat because I read your article in The Guardian about how Black Lives Matter changed your life and your marriage for the better. And yeah, I'm truly interested and keen to talk about how these confrontations with racial identity in your own relationship kind of were catalysed by the Black Lives Matter movement and its huge surge at the apex of all these instances of violence in what's really an ongoing crisis. But yeah, how did you find writing the book and how did you find the whole experience of last year?
Yeah, so I've gotten a lot of great feedback about the Guardian article, and I think part of that is that many people don't really think about the Black Lives Matter movement and particularly interracial relationships, and how it just encompasses so many different identities and situation. And so I think we started writing the book as an Audible original at the end of October 2018. Just kind of starting in the beginning. And, as you probably know, writing a book, right? I mean, it takes many people years to write their book, and a lot can happen in that time. And so we were writing, and then the Black Lives Matter movement started becoming global. The murder of George Floyd, the killing of George Floyd, unjust killing of George Floyd happened. And, it just spurred a lot of conversation between us about how we identify racially and our racial experience. And so we had already been writing the book before all the Black Lives Matter movement spread across the globe. But while we were writing it, it happened, and it just put some difficult conversations on the table, just because my husband, he's white British, and he's lived in countries around the world. He has a multicultural group of friends. He doesn't particularly say anything racist, and I think that's an interesting part of racism and the conversation around it, because a lot of times some white people are like, well, I'm not racist and I'm quite liberal and I accept everyone. And it can become quite offended when they're confronted with their white privilege. And I think it can be jarring for some people to have to kind of have these racial conversations that they haven't had before or didn't think that they needed to have personally. So we had the book come out as an Audible original in October 15th, 2020. And we received such great feedback from a lot of interracial couples who listened, but not just interracial couples, people of different backgrounds, and who just really shared their stories. I mean, some of their stories are, I think our story was quite unique in that many people thought some of the scenarios were shocking, but racism is happening. People still don't accept interracial couples. And so a lot of interracial couples were like, thank you so much, because I felt like I was reading about myself, and some of their stories are more shocking than mine. In my book, I talk about how a Black man spit on me in the street because he saw me kiss my husband, goodbye, and how that happened, and how another white man saw what happened and helped me chase after the guy to try to get a photo of him or something, and we lost him, and I talk about my feeling of how I'm conflicted because I'm trying to go after this Black guy who did this, and here's a white guy helping me, and how I feel bad about that. and also why I also understand why he did it. And so I think the book just really resonated with people because there's so many layers, and I don't think there's really been an audiobook about an interracial couple where both sides talk. So then Alex also gives like his view of events, and we'll go through scenarios where I think it's blatantly racist, and he's just like, I don't think it was that big of a deal. And he explains why, and I explain why. So there's a lot of back and forth, and there's kind of become this sort of group of people who are like team Alex, team Tineka, which we don't want. Like, we don't want that at all. But obviously people will pick sides, and, you know, people will message and saying, I think he was wrong, and I thought you were right. And, and, you know, I'm on your side. And I'm like, it's okay. Some people have messaged saying that I'm in danger. Molly, you in danger, girl. A lot of people have messaged, more than one, like quite a few. Molly, you in danger, girl. And so, and I'm not in danger. It's just, you know, interracial relationships, some people assume that they're just going to be easy, or that if you're in an interracial relationship, you just suddenly know about the person's culture or their racial experiences. And some things just, you know, aren't going to be known. You know, people aren't going to sit there for, you know, years talking about every little thing that happened in their childhood and their experiences. So, and I did a lot of like opinion articles speaking about it, and a lot of people responded to that. And what we've really seen is that, I think even for ourselves, I think more people have been in interracial relationships than we assume, and more people have had a breakdown of interracial relationships than we assume. At the same time, there are plenty of people in interracial relationships who are able to work through their differences and talk through it. It definitely helps if in-laws are getting along as well. And the audiobook did really well and got quite a bit of attention. And so now the book is coming out in paperback. We're very excited. In April 2021 from Headline, which is part of Hachette. So
amazing.
Yeah, and we have an amazing editor, and she's also in an interracial relationship. So it's just come full circle, and we're excited about that and continue.
Yeah, it's so exciting. Yeah, absolutely. Like, and it's a really interesting like exercise in this kind of web of empathy and like what people's limits and like capacities are for that. And I think like one of the reasons I'm very grateful to you for coming on and speaking to me is that I'm as out of my depth speaking about other people's interracial relationships as any other white person with like a long and storied life of like systemic white privilege would be. And like it is one of these things where it's a case where I can say as much as I want about like listening and like understanding each other and like just trying to like take it all on and like here's how I would feel in this situation, but I don't have that lived experience. I don't have that experience of being like in a Black body, having these like interactions where I am like a victim of racism or treated like badly because of that, because I am incredibly pale as well as being incredibly white. So yeah, and what you were saying about people coming up against these like issues and like relationships fracturing, breaking because like of these experiences basically is stuff that people have written in about. So I'd love to start asking you some of the questions.
Yeah, of course. I'd love to.
Amazing. So one of them's actually about kind of in-laws as well towards the end.
Hit me.
So the first one, however, is my girlfriend and I broke up because she felt like I just didn't understand where she was coming from as a Black woman. I'm white. I've been doing a lot of reading and trying my best to engage with Black feminist work as much as possible so I can talk to her about these things and try to show her that I'm on her side to get her back. Is this the right move?
I definitely think educating yourself and trying to understand Black lived experiences are very important. But what I've found just with other interracial couples and myself is it's not so much that the person, like, you know, I don't need my husband to read, 20 books on Black feminism. But what I do need him is to believe me when I'm talking to him about something that happens. And I talk about that in the book. I talk about that in a few articles where I've had a situation happen And I'm like I got into this huge, argument with this guy, and he totally did it because he targeted me because I'm Black. And, my husband's just like, oh, okay, well, maybe he was having a bad day. Maybe he was doing this. And that's like a trigger for me, because he's not being mean, or he's not saying anything racist, my husband, but it's kind of this doubt. And it's something that Black people have to deal with all day, every day.
Yeah.
And when you have to deal with it at work and in the street and in the stores, and constantly trying to prove yourself, prove that microaggressions or racism is real and actually happens to you, you don't want to do it when you're in the home. Yeah. So I think the most important thing is kind of listening. And if that person is, and I know it's easy to say listening, and believing. So if that person is telling you about their experience, and I find even with friends and close colleagues, there's just, I don't think that some white people maybe intend to do it, but there's just constant like questioning or trying to convince you that maybe it isn't all about racism. So that's always the thing. Maybe you're always looking for racism. You're always trying to find it. And I think in a relationship that can really put someone off. So, you can read as many books as you want, but ultimately, are you actually believing the person when they're talking to you about their lived experiences, and not trying to downplay it? And I think a lot of people don't realize that they do it. And so my husband and I had to work through that. But that took a lot of talking, and that took years. You can't pack everything into like a small book. So it wasn't just like a quick revelation. There was a lot of talking and a lot of arguing, and a lot of, me saying, this is what I will put up with, and obviously the Black Lives Matter movement happening, and him seeing how I was dealing with that. And really kind of, I think I'm guessing for many white people, became like a turning point of trying to realize that, maybe this isn't just some, race card thing that Black people are trying to play. It's an actual reality. But the thing is, it shouldn't take social media or seeing a Black man being unjustly killed for doing nothing, on TV to believe a person of color or a Black person when they say what they're going through. And if, a person of color or a Black person doesn't feel that their own relationship with a white person is a safe space, they're going to leave it. Yeah. And so I think just a lot of work internally needs to be done, and try to make that person feel like if they want to come to you for anything, that they can, and that they'll be believed.
Yeah, I think one thing that really stuck out for me about this question just is like the sense of safety, because I think if somebody breaks up with you because you don't understand them, because they're not being listened to, basically, and it's because they're not being heard. I think obviously it's really good to read all this literature, and I would never discourage anyone from reading it.
It's great. Yeah, it's great to read it. For sure, read it.
But yeah, there's a sense that it's like almost a bit remote from that person, and like if I don't know how much it would like reassure me if someone hadn't just directly spoken to me. I totally understand, because they've broken up with you, that they need space, and like contacting them to be like, tell me what to do. I need to know what to do. And then hear the things I've read, and then saying like,
that could also go a different way, because it could also be like, okay, great. Now he's read a book by a Black woman, so he assumes that he's now understanding what being a Black woman is about. Every Black people aren't a monolith. Every Black person has extremely different experience, and we don't always believe the same thing about race and identity. So each person is different. So it is wonderful to read a lot of Black feminist books, but it doesn't mean that you're going to suddenly know the views of the Black person that you're in a relationship with. And it's like making an effort and talking and being like, I don't know everything, being able to admit I don't know everything, and I shouldn't doubt you when you come to me about your experiences. It's absolutely a safety issue. Absolutely a safety issue. And it's great for him to read books, but really ultimately he's just going to have to believe her when she's speaking and support her and listen. Because I've seen it with a lot of friends, is that some white people take on this type of theoretical and political view of racism.
Yeah.
Right. And to a person of color or a Black person, who they are is they're not always going to think that they are this political or theoretical thing. We're humans. And I definitely think great for him to be reading up on books, but really a different approach would probably work better.
Yeah, and I think even if you got back in touch and you just wanted to say that, like, you're sorry, basically, and that you understand that you need to be better engaged, and, like, I think going into it without any expectations is the main thing. If you, like, do want to get, because you obviously do care about this woman, and, like, I think just saying that you've tried to, like, educate yourself, and if she ever wanted to, like, talk to you more about these things, you're, like, more than up for it, and you're really keen
to. I think admitting that you understand that you don't understand.
Yes.
Yes, you understand that you don't understand, but you, like, are now, like, willing and ready for her to teach you if she wants, but to just be a support for her. Because I don't think any white person is ever really going to know what it's like to be a Black person. It's just, you're just not. But it's the kind of not taking us at our word that I think can start causing a little bit of a breakdown in a relationship.
Yeah, because it would be hugely destabilizing. Like, even with little things, like a guy called my friend Katie a tart in Morrison's for standing in front of the reduced section for too long, basically.
Wow.
And, like, it's just stuff like that. And, like, we kind of talked about that as, like, this bizarre incident of, like, absurd misogyny. But even stuff like that, if somebody was like, oh, well, maybe he was, like, doing this, maybe he was doing something else, like, it just, the tone totally changes. Like, all these instances where someone is vulnerable or someone is upset, like, if you approach it as something to be diffused rather than something to be heard, I think it'll just cause
it's kind of like a kind of like calm down type of attitude, and that's not the right one to have.
No, I've never become more calm when someone's told me to calm down. That's never happened historically. So, like, I really do, I do totally see that. And I think if in any event and someone breaks up with you, they might just have wanted to break up with you. It's not a test necessarily.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's not like, now it's time for you to redeem yourself and we can resume, like, part 2 of the relationship, if you know what I mean. Like, this person also might have just completely moved on now. It's something else you need to maybe prepare yourself for.
I definitely think if he cares about her, he should for sure try. And, I wish him the best of luck.
Yeah. And I think you seem like you're trying, and I think trying's the
he cares, clearly.
Everything. Yeah. I don't think you seem like a bad guy.
No, he seems like a good guy. Just I completely understand where he's coming from, because if you don't have that background and that understanding, it can be frustrating. But at the same time, we're at a point in history and time where I think many people are like, okay, you guys have had centuries to catch on. So, and so I think you're seeing a lot of Black people and people of color just be like, I'm done. Like, you have to do better, essentially.
Yeah. Have you experienced that in, like, your friend groups and your social circles? Like, people just, like, ending a relationship because you can't get past these things, or you can't get past these things with certain people?
In terms of racism in my friend group, I don't think I've had that. I've had, like, arguments in the past with them. I mean, I mean, and I think some of them might triggers as well. I have no problem arguing with my friends about racism. Absolutely not. So I think many of them will argue right back. But the Black Lives Matter movement, some of them that I've disagreed with in the past, like, they, like, came out to protest with us, and some of them I've seen change where they argue less and listen more, but don't, like, say anything. They're like, kind of someone who would normally say something controversial just kind of doesn't. And so it's interesting, like it's almost like people are like kind of treading a little bit more carefully, but also listening. And I've had a lot of friends who listened to the book and then, you know, actually kind of agree with me, but it took me kind of explaining in a 5.5-hour audiobook for them to really get it. Because obviously when you're having an argument, you're not going to sit there and like give a whole history of everything. So sometimes I think it just takes people like, and obviously it's not the job of Black people to educate white people. A person needs to educate themselves. But I haven't cut off any friends in terms of racism. I think like they accept me, and if they say something that I don't like, I say it right back, and you know, we're still friends at the end of the day. But if there was a friend who I thought was extremely racist and saying racist things to me, and they weren't listening, I would absolutely kind of not associate with them anymore. And I think that's happened quite a bit recently with all the racial tensions. I've had like some people who have been kind of Facebook friends, and they're like old like buddies from like school or something, who put things up on Facebook that are essentially sort of racist, and I've just kind of like block, delete.
People really show you what they're like on Facebook in a way that I think we maybe wouldn't have gotten
politically and racially. They really do. And then I've had people who like when the book came out, it was kind of like my like in-laws who I don't really see or talk to every day, like, you know, cousin-in-laws or like uncles or aunts-in-laws who like really like wrote to me like with messages of support, like to me, not really to Alex, my husband, but to me with messages of support, and like I've learned so much, and I was really moved by that as well, because they're not people that you're speaking to like every single day, and they just really showed their appreciation and been like, really kind of embracing. And you know, I even have a cousin-in-law who will, like, if someone's saying something sort of racist on my like feed on Instagram, will like say something right back to them. You know, so I've been, that has been a nice, I guess not a surprise, because they're good people. But that's been a nice like kind of unsuspected little like support, just like the messages from them. So it's I've had a good experience so far. And with the book, just people giving great reactions. Every now and then on Instagram, I might have someone tell me that I'm a victim and I don't know what I'm talking about, and to prove racism. And I do share it on my stories, and I show what people are saying, and then I get a lot of support back from people who I don't know. So so as much as there has been racial tension that we've seen, and especially in the US, the UK, across the world, I think there's as many people who are kind of coming together, you know, and moving towards the fight for racial equality.
It's interesting you say that about people jumping in the comments, because I think, one thing about the Black Lives Matter movement, one thing about like more education on racial equality and racial justice, is that people, I think, for a long time just been like, oh, it's not my place. Like if that kind of thing's happening, like it's not my place to wade in. Like I don't want to cause a fight. Like I don't want to put myself in the firing line and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
like,
I definitely see people stepping up more, and especially because there's been such a call for white people to be you know, allies, and not just be not racist, but to be anti-racist. And so I've seen a lot more white people kind of start speaking up to other white people. It is interesting though. Well, it's not interesting. I mean, it's my experience that if I'm going back and forth with someone in my comments, they always come back and argue. And as soon as a white person says something to them, they don't say anything else.
Yeah, because there's a hierarchy for a racist of
Exactly.
like who's
And
saying speaking the truth,
exactly,
basically.
who's speaking the truth. So if a white person is saying it to them, they'll believe it over a black person. A white person talking about racism is more believable than a black person talking about racism. So I think this is also why I think white people being anti-racist and speaking up when they're speaking with friends or colleagues or family, it makes such a huge difference. And it's not going to happen if we're not all in it together.
Yeah, that's so true. But yeah, speaking about being in it together, I guess we can move on to the second question, which is also kind of about social media.
Okay.
And it goes, my partner has been deeply depressed because of the police brutality and continued violence against Black bodies globally. I want to be supportive and look after their mental health, but we just got in a huge row because I said it'd be better if they took a break from the news and from their social feeds. How can I care for them without making them feel like I'm being dismissive of the news?
So do not tell Black people that they need to take a break from being Black. I mean, essentially that's our reality. Like ignoring the news and social media about what's happening to her people. It's very normal reaction to have. I went through it as well. I was like crying, at the videos, at the news reports. It's extremely personal because when you're looking at this, it's kind of solidifying in you the fact that like, this is how the world sees me. And to say like, oh, turn it off, take a break, don't think about it. There's no not thinking about it. If you are a Black person or a person of color, it's not like you can take a break or, a holiday or a vacation from your skin color. I think if someone is feeling emotional about the atrocities that are happening to their people, they have every right to feel emotional, and comfort should be given. Not trying to take that problem away, because I think if that were me, I would also kind of interpret it as you're doing it because you don't want to deal with me being emotional about it. It's completely normal. And that also kind of shows that there's a little bit of a lack of understanding about the racial, issues that person is going through. Like, turn it off and things will get better.
Disappear.
That's not the case.
Yeah.
Don't offer that. Don't do that anymore. She has every right to be mad. I would also get very angry. It should be comfort that you should be giving, not trying to just kind of brush it under the rug for the moment. So, there can be a bit of peace in the house. That's not going to make the problem go away.
Yeah, because the thing is this idea that if you put the news off or if you put social media away, these things will disappear too. And that's just not going to happen. And like, also I think because so much of everything that's happening is really, really, really emphasized that the personal is political and the political is personal. Like there isn't a cut-off point for either of those things because that's kind of impossible. Like, and it's not going to make someone feel better to have less information. If you know what I mean.
Loads of Black people during the Black Lives Matter movement who were seeing this on screen in the US, in the UK, across the world, like were emotional and shocked. And I'm feeling, having feelings of depression or sadness. It's completely normal. And, many people are just tired or just kind of tired, and we want action to be done. And I think she's very valid to have feelings about it.
Yeah, I think, you're right about saying that comfort is definitely the main thing here instead of trying to like control the environment almost. Like, and try and
control the emotion. Like, no.
You can't do that with anyone who's been deeply depressed. Like,
no, she has every reason to be deeply depressed. Like, absolutely. I'm sure many people were around the world. So completely normal feelings.
Yeah, I think it'd be pretty wild if people weren't affected at all by everything that's happening. Yeah. That's not what I'm saying that you're the partner in this question's been doing. But I think if it is easier for you to kind of switch off from these things emotionally for whatever reason, then care is the main thing to do. And
I think she might also be like, why aren't you more affected emotionally? because you're with someone like me. So you should also be affected. And so there's kind of that element as well.
Yeah, which is quite troubling, I imagine.
Yeah.
And like it would be quite a disconnecting experience to see somebody.
Yeah.
Like,
that's definitely a disconnect in racial experiences for sure.
Yeah, yeah. But how would you, like, what are the best ways to comfort people in these instances, do you think? Do you think because it's so personal, it will be person to person? Or do you think, like,
I think it will be, I mean, every person is different. So I can't say what exactly will comfort another person. Obviously, he's going to know his girlfriend best. The main thing, though, is to not suggest to shut the TV off or not look at social media and brush it under the rug. You know, he could talk to her about her feelings, you know, about it. You know, she might not want to talk about it as well. It's just kind of being a support with whatever she needs and allowing her to feel those feelings and to go through the different stages that she needs to do. I know I had to speak to one couple who the wife who's Black and the husband who's white, the wife was feeling quite depressed and down. And then when the protests were happening, the husband actually organized kind of like the friends to go do a protest, you know, for like enjoying the Black Lives Matter protests. And I thought that was kind of a very beautiful thing, right? He didn't try to say, you know, don't turn, close your eyes and put your hands over your ears. It was like, let's do something. And it really made a difference. And that difference was because he showed her that he understood the pain she was going through and, you know, encouraged her to kind of embrace it and, you know, try to do something positive with it. So
yeah, because it's not just like positive, it's like productive as well. That's what I was thinking.
Productive and positive, you know. So if there's something that he can do to together with her to kind of show that support, I think many people, I grappled with it as well in the beginning, like, what can I actually do to show my support? I feel like I'm over here in Europe and I'm not there in the US, and I felt just kind of horrible that I couldn't be there on the front line in marches. And it actually was my husband who encouraged me to kind of, you know, just speak about it on social media and, you know, talk about it with different, and that's when I started speaking. I went on the BBC and just had different opinion articles in different outlets, and went to a few protests. And I just kind of, you know, everyone plays a small part, even no matter how small. If maybe that might doing something together, suggesting donating to an anti-racism fund. I mean, there's little things that you can do to show your support without trying to convince them to just like shut down completely and pretend the problem isn't there.
Like, being active, because I think this is almost quite a destructive way of handling it as opposed to that productive way of handling it. But I think, it's another question I think obviously cares about somebody and is like trying to do their best, but it's just not the right thing because you're not listening.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, sometimes it's just kind of a bit of a hit and miss.
Yeah, truly. But this is a situation, the next question, where everything's going well. We're having an introduction to the family in the next question, but it's going to bring some tensions. So I'm introducing my white partner to my family, and they gave my brother's ex such a hard time for being white, so I'm nervous. How do I make sure everyone's on their best behavior without starting a fight?
So without starting a fight with the family, getting upset that they're asking them to be on the best behavior.
Yes, I think that's the question.
You know, what I did is I actually, like, before my husband met my family, he had met, we're like overseas from them because they're in the US, but he had been having conversations. I had him have conversations with like 2 family members that I thought would be really easy with him. And then by the time he met everybody and like he was all together with the family, he had people who he knew. Do you know what I mean? And sometimes there's always like a bit of a like kind of a ringleader into and then who's like everyone might look to say, okay, what do they think? And we'll go off of them. I would actually say don't like introduce him to everyone at once. maybe like one or two people that are going to be quite easy. Maybe one person that will be quite easy, one person that will be like someone who might cause a little bit of trouble, because then they're like used to them, and then introduce him to kind of the wider family. If she does not want, I think she or he does not want.
I don't know. We just got partner, so any gender.
Okay, so he or she does not want to. It sounds like they don't want to actually speak to the family about it. Personally, I think that if it's someone you really care about and you want it to work and they're your family and they love you, you should be able to just kind of say, hey, like, could you just kind of, take it easy and be open to meeting this person and get to know them before kind of giving them a hard time. And I think that conversation definitely should be had, but I think also strategically introduce them to like a person, like have the people on your side so that when it's a big family gathering, you've got, your kind of little support group and crowd in case anything kicks off, for sure. And so then when Alex was in the group of family, a lot of people, the key people already were used to him and knew him. So it wasn't really an issue. And so he was quite lucky. Yeah. So it was always like when he was going to a new group of people, there was already a group of people there that he knew. It was very like, I was very strategic in that way. And so I think I think everyone was great. And I think he's really close with one side of my family and a few people from another side. And then when I think we only had like one interaction that wasn't great. They didn't say anything, but they just acted really, really weird. And I knew it was because he was white.
Yeah.
Like just weird. Like the person I didn't even know. I was like, what's happening? And then I was with other family that were like, yeah, that was really weird. But he was still with people. They were acting weird. But he was still with people and they made some comments about him being from England. But he was with people who knew him. So we were there, and then I just gave a look to someone else and we were out of there. So it was fine. It was good. But definitely first gather some people in your corner. So I think it's more for them to feel comfortable as well. Obviously the person you're bringing into that situation, rather than, everyone on him or her in one instance.
Because I think that definitely makes sense. It definitely feels easier to have like someone you already know and someone who can already talk to you and know what talking to you is like. If you know what I mean.
Exactly.
And one at a time makes more sense to me anyway. Just because it's less intimidating, whatever happens. But I was thinking with this particular question, because your brother's ex was white, he's probably got a good take on like what it would be like.
Exactly.
For
so make sure the brother's there. Get him or her and the brother, make sure they're getting along, and then you've got someone in your corner as well.
Yeah, completely.
Baby steps, I think, but that's also for any type of relationship, I think, as well. But like kind of baby steps will, I think, be warming people up, and then also having that frank conversation.
Yes, I love the idea of getting like a tough nut as well, a tough nut to crack on side. So you've got like
on the side, like let them in. So if that person's in, it's good. There's always that like person.
And then like the toughest nut will look to the tough nut and be like, okay, exactly. I respect this now.
Exactly.
No, I totally get that. I think that's a good strategy. So we've got one final question.
Okay, the final one.
Which is, what do you do when your partner is silent, whether that's because they feel awkward, disagree, or are humouring you when you bring up issues of race? How do you not get angry inside?
I think it's perfectly natural to get a little bit angry inside, especially if you don't. It sounds like that person doesn't know what their partner is feeling. They don't know if they disagree or like or not, or they're feeling awkward. And I think I would think that would be kind of a bit of a communication issue. I've had someone write to me who said that like she had like 2 children with this white man. And she said in the end, they've separated because she had actually listened to the book. And she said, you know, at least your husband, he actually stays in the room when you talk to him about race, where mine would literally walk out of it and just didn't want anything to do with it. I think, especially with interracial relationships, we didn't at the very beginning, we didn't think it was like a big thing. We were too busy getting to know each other to really talk about like, oh, let's have a conversation about race before we get into anything serious. But I think it's actually quite important because if you don't deal with it in the beginning, you will deal with it at some point. And for this person, I think they really need to talk to their husband or partner. Like, why are you not responding when I talk about race? I mean, yeah, it really sounds like communication, because I don't think I don't think he would have been able to not respond back to me. I would you know, and it's really important because if something happens when you're out, or especially in our book, I speak about a lot of different anecdotes when we're at a dinner and he doesn't defend me and someone says something that I found racially offensive. And, you know, you want to know if this person you're with, who has a privileged position in society, is going to have your back when it really counts, especially in a racially charged situation. And I think not knowing that would drive me crazy.
Yes.
And so if that person really cares about you and who you are, they should be willing to have those conversations, and you just kind of have to push for it and demand it. Because your race is a part of your identity, you know, and if they're denying or not wanting to talk about race and who you are, they're denying a part of you. And so I think it's the responsibility of the person who is the person of color, who is Black, to demand that they engage with them about conversations on racism. And I think it's the responsibility of the other person to give that person the conversation. If they really care about you, they'll have that conversation. But I think sometimes you have to demand it, you know, and kind of set boundaries and say, like, if you're not supporting me, then maybe it isn't the right relationship.
I think that's totally right.
It's happening a lot. And it's happening a lot now, especially with the movement, and like interracial couples are kind of reevaluating and having difficult conversations.
And reevaluating, I guess, like quite fundamental things almost that seem like, as you say, like when you're talking about how you and your husband almost like didn't address things for a long time at the beginning of your relationship because like you were busy falling in love. You know what I mean? Like in quite like a different way to something as racially focused, if you know what I mean. Like it is missing out quite fundamental beliefs almost, or fundamental experiences. And I think I'm trying to think of reasons why someone would be silent, and like the reasons here, like feeling awkward, disagreeing, or humoring you.
I feel like it must be disagreeing, or I mean, sometimes like, if she's never heard she's never heard any type of opinion, like that's a bit, I wouldn't say humoring. I would say humoring would probably be if like it's a constant discussion and then sometimes he just doesn't want to engage. I would feel like it would be disagreement. I mean, feeling awkward, I would feel like he would at least say, I don't know what to say. Yeah,
or say like, oh, I'm just really worried about saying the wrong thing here. Or something like that. Like if you
but it must
say
be
like,
he doesn't agree. He must not agree with everything but doesn't want to start a fight and doesn't want to hurt that person's feelings. But I think, you know, I think they should kind of put all of their thoughts on the table. In the end, it could bring people, it can bring people closer, honestly. You know, relationships aren't meant to be easy, but I think sometimes people do things just to avoid confrontation in a relationship. And
it just makes everything worse. Like
Yeah,
I would
especially
always
during
rather
lockdown, right? You're in the house together 24/7, and you don't want to like. I can see some people doing that, like not wanting to. They're
to
like,
rock
let
the
me
boat.
take this until I can actually, escape sometimes if I need to.
Yes, I can run out the house immediately after. But no, I do think it's worrying. Like I get the sense that you have to like preserve peace in a way, but I also don't I don't know if I really respect it. Basically, like I just think that I'd rather somebody fell out with me honestly than was
truthful,
like
honesty.
passive aggressively quiet.
Important in a relationship for sure.
Yeah.
And so she needs to demand it, and he needs to, she deserves that conversation for sure.
Yeah, and he should be able to face up to it, and it should be things he's thinking about.
He needs to step up.
Yeah, he needs to step up.
Step up and do it. You can do it.
You can do it. You'll be great. And if you're not great, you can just apologize and do better.
Yeah, do better.
Do better. Great. Well, that's all the questions. But I was wondering if you had any recommendations for a great breakup album or song or film.
Yes, I do have a song. I mean, like, so I've been married for, I think, over 5 years. So I haven't listened to breakup songs in a while, but back in the day, when I did, I really, I hope it's okay if I curse, but it's
oh yeah, go ahead.
Fuck You by Lily Allen. Fuck You very much. I just think it's a brilliant song. And so I would definitely listen to that, and I would immediately feel,
vindicated.
Great, wonderful. If you're going through a breakup, listen to it. It just, turns the sadness into like, whatever. I think it's a brilliant song. I think it's the ultimate breakup song for sure. And the music video is great too. I mean, the music video is great.
I don't even think I've seen the music video.
I think it's literally like she's planned all these horrible things to happen to him, like he gets attacked or whatever, but he doesn't know, and then he comes crying to her. And she's like, oh yeah, or whatever, and she's the one doing it. But I just thought it was brilliant. Just like that anger. It's perfect. It's perfect. It's wonderful.
Yeah, total retribution fantasy for like all the things you wish
like
on
slowly
someone.
Watching your prey wither.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Where can people find you online?
So I am on Instagram. And my handle is This Is Tineka. My name is spelled Tineka. And that's where I usually just kind of keep everyone up to date. And my book is coming out April 2021 in paperback, Mixed Up Confessions of an Interracial Couple. Please pre-order. We appreciate it. Pre-orders are very important. And I'm happy to connect with anyone on Instagram.
Yeah, I'll put links for everything in the episode notes of the show. But
perfect.
Yeah, you can catch us on Instagram at Breaking Up Podcast. And if you have any questions that you'd like to ask me and future guests, you can email breakinguppodcast@gmail.com. And yeah, that's great. Thanks so much. Bye.